My name is Eveline Caro, though most people just call me Eve. I'm 72, retired from the Charlottesville Public Library, and still living in the brick colonial my late husband, Thomas, built with his own hands in 1964. The house has creaky floorboards, a narrow staircase, and a kitchen window that looks out toward the dogwood trees we planted the spring after our wedding. I never planned to fill it with anyone's noise again yet for the last 9 months. My daughter and her husband have made it their temporary home, Ava says. Temporary, the way people say eventually. Drew is quieter. He works long shifts at the hospital, then spends his evenings fixing whatever's already fixed. I cook, keep the laundry moving, and tell myself it's only until they find a place of their own. That Tuesday started like all the others. I roasted chicken with rosemary and lemon, mashed the potatoes, and set the table for 3. The smell filled every room, familiar and forgiving. For a few minutes, we almost felt like a family again. Over dinner, Ava scrolled through her phone while Drew spooned carrots onto his plate. They spoke about rent prices, impossible mortgages, and how people their age would never own anything. I listened, nodded, passed the salt. Then Ava sighed. Honestly, Mom, all this stress wouldn't exist if we used what's already ours. I looked up. What do you mean? Sweetheart. She gestured around us, as if the walls were just another asset. This house, it means nothing sitting here. We can sell it any time and split the money. You'd still have more than enough. Her tone was casual, almost bored. The sound of it hollowed something inside me. For 30 years, this kitchen had carried laughter, arguments, birthdays, every breath of our lives. And now it was just nothing. I put my fork down. This house isn't for sale, I said. My voice was calm, but it shook beneath the words. Drew cleared his throat. Sensing what Ava didn't, she leaned back, unbothered, like we were debating a parking space. I smiled faintly, the way librarians do when they've just closed a book that hurt more than they expected. After dinner, I washed the dishes alone. The water was hot, my hands steady. Upstairs, their laughter echoed faintly through the floorboards. I dried the last plate, turned off the light, and went to my study to make a phone call. The study still smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. Thomas had built the shelves himself, each plank smooth and steady, like his voice when he used to calm me down. I sat at his old desk and let the quiet settle until I could hear my own breath again. My phone rested beside the lamp. My hands didn't shake when I scrolled through my contacts. They stopped on Mara Klein, a friend I'd known since our sons played Little League together. Mara had always been direct, the sort of woman who carried calm like a skill. When she answered, her voice was low and warm. Eveline, everything all right? Can you list my house tonight? I asked. There was a small pause. You're serious? I'm steady, I said. Send the forms. I'll sign them. The email arrived minutes later. The cursor blinked at the bottom of the agreement like it was waiting to see if I meant it. I read every line address, disclosure, agent fee, and then typed my name, Eveline Caro. The sound of my own signature clicking into place felt like something locking. Not anger, not revenge, just a decision. Clean and heavy. I walked back to the kitchen. The lights were still on. The table half cleared. Ava was on the couch, scrolling again. Drew watching the evening news with the volume low. I set my laptop down on the table, turned the screen toward them, and pressed submit. Ava looked up. What are you doing? I'm listing the house, I said. My voice didn't rise. You said we can sell it anytime. So we will, but on my terms. For a second, she didn't understand. Then the color drained from her face. You can't be serious. Drew opened his mouth but said nothing. I've never been more serious, I said. closing the laptop gently. The sound of the latch clicking shut filled the silence between us. Ava stood there, hands trembling, caught between shock and fury. Drew's fork scraped softly against his plate, the only sound left in the room, and for the first time in months, I felt the floor beneath me hold firm. The argument didn't explode, it fractured, quiet and sharp. Ava's voice rose behind me as I set the laptop down on the counter. You can't just decide things like this. You're throwing us out for no reason. I'm not throwing anyone out, I said. I'm selling my house. You're guests, not prisoners. She was already grabbing her phone. Fine. Maybe someone else should decide if you're even fit to do that. It took less than 15 minutes for the patrol car to arrive. The flash of blue lights against the front windows painted the living room in slices of cold color. Drew stood by the doorway, pale, saying nothing. 2 officers stepped in, one older, with soft eyes, the other young and stiff in his posture. The older one spoke first. Evening. Ma'am, we got a call about a disturbance. Ava rushed forward, tears bright but controlled. She's unstable. She's selling the house out from under us. We have a baby, and she's just... The officer held up a hand. Let's slow down. Whose name is on the deed? I went to the study, retrieved the folder, and placed the paper on the table between us. Mine, I said simply. Eveline Caro. It's all there. The older officer scanned it, nodded once, and handed it back. This is her property, he said to Ava. It's a family matter, not a police one. Nobody's being removed tonight. Ava's face burned red. You can't just leave, she's ruining everything. The younger officer's tone stayed even. Ma'am, nothing illegal is happening here. Try to resolve this privately. When the door closed behind them, the house fell utterly silent. No baby cries, no television hum, just the low ring in my ears from all the shouting. I walked to the kitchen sink and turned on the water. The faucet hissed steady as I rinsed a cup I didn't need to wash. My hands trembled, but I kept them under the stream until the shaking eased. Through the window, the last trace of blue light faded from the driveway. What remained was just night wide, quiet, and mine. The next morning arrived with a deceptive softness. Light filtered through the lace curtains, turning the kitchen into a watercolor of gold and white. I brewed coffee like always, listening to the familiar hum of the percolator. Somewhere down the hall, the baby cooed, and for a brief second, I believed we might start over. The house smelled of cinnamon toast and soap. I half expected Ava to walk in, eyes tired, voice softer, ready to apologize. Instead, I heard her voice low and urgent behind the closed guest room door. I told you, we'll apply again today, she whispered. It's her name, she signed it months ago. The bank said it should go through this time. The spoon in my hand stopped mid-stir. I waited for more, for some word that might make sense of it. But all I heard was the sound of drawers opening, papers rustling. My chest felt tight, as if the air itself had thickened. I set the mug down and walked to my study. The morning calm now felt staged, like a photograph already fading at the edges. I sat at my desk and tried to steady my breathing. The phone rang. It was Mara. Eveline, good morning. Listen, while the title office was reviewing your file, something came up. Her tone changed gentle, hesitant. There's a pending home equity loan application attached to your property. It's in your name. My pulse kicked hard against my ribs. That's impossible. It lists an authorized signer. Mara continued. Ava Caro Green. It looks like she used an existing power of attorney. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The coffee on my desk had gone cold. The scent of cinnamon now bitter. Outside, the light looked softer still, like mourning, pretending not to know it had already broken something. I printed the report Mara had forwarded, each page sliding from the machine like a quiet accusation. The top line read, Borrower, Ava Caro Green. Co-signer, Drew Green. Under authorization. My own name appeared in neat black letters. The signature from 2 years ago, the power of attorney I'd signed before my knee surgery. I remembered that day clearly. The nurse asking for an emergency contact. My hand trembling from anesthesia as I told my daughter I trusted her. Now, that same ink had become a weapon I hadn't known I'd given her. I carried the papers into the dining room. Ava and Drew were at the table, the baby asleep in a carrier beside them. The air smelled of formula and lemon cleaner. I laid the printouts down without a word. Ava's eyes flicked over the first page. Then she exhaled. Oh, this, she said lightly. It's just a home equity line. People do it all the time. It's family money. Drew shifted in his chair. We were going to tell you, Eve, after it got approved. He rubbed his forehead. We've got medical bills, student loans. This would fix everything. I looked at them both. My voice stayed level. You decided what I should risk. With the only roof I have. Ava straightened. It's not risk. It's smart. You're sitting on equity you don't even use. The words felt colder than any night in this house. I picked up the phone. Excuse me, I said. I need to make a call. The customer service line played soft piano while I gave my account details. Yes, I said finally. I'm the homeowner. No, I did not authorize this. Please freeze all pending applications immediately. When I hung up, Ava's face was pale. Drew's eyes were fixed on the table. I'll be speaking with an attorney this afternoon, I said quietly. An elder law specialist. Ava opened her mouth, but I didn't stay to hear what came next. I gathered the papers, walked to my study, and closed the door. The click of the latch sounded smaller than it felt. The attorney's name was Patricia Lennox, a referral from my neighbor, Claire, who swore she was the kindest woman in Charlottesville when dealing with impossible family matters. Patricia appeared on my laptop screen that afternoon. Silver hair, thin glasses, a stack of folders behind her. Her voice carried the steadiness of someone who had heard every version of heartbreak before. I read the summary your realtor sent. She began. Let's start with the basics. The power of attorney still active. Yes, I said. Signed before surgery. I never revoked it. Patricia nodded. That's the first step. You'll need a written revocation. Notarized and filed with the county. Then we notify your bank and title office. In writing. That no one is authorized to act on your behalf. After that, I'd recommend placing your home into an irrevocable trust. It keeps the property safe from future misuse, even by family. Her words were clean, clinical, and somehow heavy. I wrote them down on a yellow pad, my pen scratching quietly across the paper. Miss Caro, Patricia added, her tone softening. I can prepare all the documents today if you're ready, but there's one question I need to ask you first. I looked up. Go ahead. Do you want them to stay with you while we fix this? The screen seemed to blur for a moment. I thought of the baby's soft laugh, Drew repairing the cabinet hinge last month, Ava humming in the kitchen before everything soured. For years, this house had been the place I opened without hesitation. Now every sound in it made me flinch. I don't know, I admitted. It's still their home in some ways. Patricia's expression was kind but firm. It's yours, Ms. Caro. The question isn't about law, it's about peace. Which do you want more? The cursor blinked at the bottom of her screen while I searched for the answer. The coffee beside me had gone cold again, untouched. Somewhere down the hall, a door closed, and I realized the real work of protecting something often begins after you stop hoping it will fix itself. By morning, I knew what I had to do. The yellow pad from my meeting with Patricia lay open on the desk, my handwriting steady across the page. I reread the legal notes, then opened a blank document. The cursor blinked like a quiet metronome as I began to type. 30-day notice to vacate. The words looked harsh at first, like something a stranger would send, but I softened the edges, added lines about gratitude, about love. I explained that this wasn't punishment, only structure, that I would cover their first month's rent in exchange for attending financial counseling and signing a plan to repay my legal costs. It took nearly an hour to shape it into something both firm and merciful. When I printed 2 copies, the paper was still warm from the machine. Ava and Drew were in the kitchen when I handed it to them. The baby sat in her high chair, smearing cereal on the tray. Drew read quietly. His lips tightened. Ava's face flushed red. "This is emotional blackmail," she said. "You're controlling us just to make yourself feel better." I sat down across from her. "No," I said. "It's structure. The thing families break without noticing." She laughed, short and brittle. "You're unbelievable." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm also done living in a house where respect is optional." The room went still. Drew folded the paper once. "Carefully. We'll read it again tonight," he murmured. Ava looked away, her jaw set. The baby reached for a spoon and dropped it. Metal clattering against the tile. No one moved to pick it up. I left them there and stepped out to the porch. The air was cool, full of the sound of late cicadas. I thought of Thomas laying these bricks one by one, never imagining that love could one day need signatures to survive. Inside, the printer whirred again, copying the letter I'd just written. Boundaries, I thought, are a kind of faith. You draw them because you still believe something worth saving might remain. 2 days later, the papers arrived by courier, thick envelopes with my name written neatly across the top. Patricia had prepared everything: the revocation of power of attorney, the notice to the bank, and a new set of documents for something she called an irrevocable living trust. I made tea before I opened them. The sound of the kettle reminded me of the years when Thomas would hum in the kitchen, shuffling through the morning paper. He always believed in paperwork, sign it right. Eve, he used to say, so no one can undo what matters. Now it was my turn to make sure no one could undo what we built. I read every line slowly. The trust named me as the lifetime resident of the house no one could sell, borrow against, or alter it while I lived. When I was gone, whatever remained would fund the Thomas Caro Scholarship for local teachers, a quiet tribute to the man who once spent his evenings tutoring neighborhood kids for free. The language was clean and final. I signed where Patricia had placed yellow tags, each signature a small anchor of peace. When the notary stamped the last page, the soft thud of her seal felt like a door closing, not in anger, but in certainty. When she left, I walked through the house, papers tucked under my arm. The light moved slowly across the walls, catching on old photographs. Thomas in the garden, Ava as a little girl holding a plastic watering can. For the first time in weeks, the house felt still, not brittle, not afraid, just still. I locked the folder in the cabinet and stood for a long moment by the kitchen window. The oaks outside swayed gently, leaves whispering against the glass. The sound was small but steady, the kind of quiet that comes when something fragile finally learns how to hold its own weight again. The morning they moved out was pale and quiet. The truck idled in the driveway, the back half filled with boxes labeled in Ava's neat handwriting. Drew carried the last of the baby's things, careful not to wake her from her nap in the car seat. The smell of dust and cardboard clung to the hall. Ava stood in the living room, looking around as if the walls might speak to her. "I never realized how empty a house looks when the pictures are gone," she murmured. I nodded. "It looks like a clean page, Those can be hard to face. She kept her arms crossed, then asked, so softly I almost missed it, will I ever inherit it? The house. The question sat between us, heavy and bare. I thought of Thomas, of the years spent painting these walls, fixing the roof after storms, planting marigolds for every summer she came home from college. I wanted to answer gently, but the truth had to stand on its own. No, I said. You won't. Ava blinked, eyes glistening. So, that's it. Not quite. I said, you'll inherit something better, my time. If you want it, my forgiveness, and Sunday dinners when you're ready for them. She looked down, the words catching somewhere deep, for the first time in months. She didn't argue. I went to the kitchen, took the slow cooker from the counter, and wrapped the cord around it. Take this, I said, handing it to her. It'll save you money, and it makes a good stew for small places. Ava held it like something fragile. Thank you, she whispered. Outside, Drew started the truck. The baby stirred, making a small, sleepy sound. Ava stepped onto the porch, turned once to look back, and managed a quiet smile. When they drove away, the air in the house shifted. Not lighter, not emptier, just honest. I stood by the doorway, one hand on the frame, and breathed until the silence stopped hurting. Weeks passed before the house found its rhythm again. The trust had been filed, the deed re-recorded under its new protection, and the listing quietly withdrawn. The for sale sign disappeared from the front yard, leaving behind a faint rectangle of pale grass where the sun hadn't reached. Every evening, I brewed tea and read by the window, the quiet no longer heavy, only steady. One Saturday morning, I heard a car pull into the drive. When I opened the door, Ava stood there holding a bag of groceries. Drew followed with the baby balanced on his hip, her chubby hands clutching a stuffed rabbit. The sight of them on the porch felt almost like memory, familiar, but not fragile this time. We brought stew meat and vegetables. Ava said, thought we'd cook here, if that's all right. It's all right, I said, stepping aside. Come in. The kitchen filled with the sound of knives against cutting boards, the scent of onions and thyme. Drew set the baby in her old high chair. She banged a spoon like a tiny drummer. Ava worked quietly, eyes focused on the carrots, until she reached into her purse and handed me a folded paper. It's from the counseling center, she said. They asked us to bring the receipts. I unfolded it, proof of their sessions, dates lined in careful ink. Thank you, I said. Ava glanced toward the living room where the family photos hung again. She touched one frame gently, the picture of her father at the lake, and looked at me. May I move this to the mantel? I nodded. She smiled, small and genuine, then lifted it with both hands as if it were something living. By evening, the stew simmered thick and rich. We ate at the same table where the first argument had begun, but now the air felt different, anchored, forgiving. The baby giggled when Drew made faces. Ava refilled my bowl without asking. When the dishes were washed and the house quieted, I stood at the doorway watching them leave. The porch light cast a warm circle on the steps, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like anyone's home was in danger of being lost. It had simply changed hands in a better way. Respect, finally, replacing ownership.